This is the surreal run of Kutch, the doorway to India. When the night is clear and the moon in full bloom, these white sands light up radiantly. For those nights, the earth becomes the moon. This stark and austere beauty is colorfully contrasted by the people of Kutch, by the vivid colors of their handicrafts and the sweet melodies of their folk music. Close by is the serene and laid-back beach of Mandeville, where the land gently rolls down into the sea. Breathe in the zest for life here, the colorful festivals, the arts, the vibrance. Breathe in a bit of Kutch. Come, breathe in a bit of Gujarat.
नमस्कार, गुड मॉर्निंग एंड आप सबोनु सहर्ष स्वागत करू छू. So I think you can guess, and we also showed you the video to set the stage today for taking you to the westernmost part of our country, the beautiful land, the largest district also incidentally of India, the district of Kutch. And we are going to today travel through Kutch, and viewers, you must be wondering why in sweltering heat are we taking you to Kutch? It's hot. But when we spoke to the presenter for today, she told us on how the people of Kutch are not only just resilient, but every year they go through a lot of challenges. And I'm sure viewers, we all remember that the 2001 devastating earthquake that hit Kuch. But how the people in that area have come back and are so resilient, the grit, the sheer optimism of these people and the sheer enterprise of these people is something that we thought we would like to bring to you in these challenging times when we go through meeting with COVID and its challenges. The meaning of Kutch, it is literally a land that becomes both wet and dry. A large part in the run of Kutch is shallow wetland. Kutch, incidentally, is a Sanskrit word and also translates into tortoise. I am looking forward to our presenter, Dr. Naveena Jaffa, today telling us what is the story of the tortoise in this land, but more on that a bit later. The history of Kutch, viewers, is prehistoric, and it is one of the oldest civilizations that are known to mankind today. Well, the 97 small rivers in the Kutch, the 22 major dams, and there are so many other micro dams in that area. The place is beautifully known for embroidery, which I think a lot of women would love to hear about from our presenter today. What is interesting is that each of the tribes there has their own very distinctive style of carrying out the embroidery, and they like to be, not only doing it, but they like to be very proudly associated with each of those craft forms. The whole area of Kuch is also ecologically very rich, and the wildlife conservation areas of Kutch are not something to be missed. And therefore, as we are going to meander and cover our head, definitely, it's hot over there. But we are going to go through the sanctuaries, the Indian Wildlife Sanctuary, the Kutch Desert Wildlife Sanctuary, the Narayan Sarovar Sanctuary, the Bunny Grasslands, and of course, the salt marshes of Kutch. So there's just so much. And therefore, taking us through all this today is a very accomplished lady, Dr. Naveena Jaffa. She's a master heritage interpreter. She's a classical dancer. She specializes in Kathak, but in other classical dance forms too. She's a historian, she's a writer, she's a commentator. And incidentally, I must mention her mom. Naveena's mother, Manorma Jaffa ji, was a writer of children's literature. She has more than 100 books to her credit and several hundred of stories, which in a sense, and that is something I am not able to keep myself away in each of my webinars, is to keep going back to our heritage, our culture. And in this particular case, I would say that the value of good parenting, I think passing on the right values to your children, encouraging them towards reading and intellectual thought, and forming yourself as a strong individual is something that we are very proud of. And Naveena is also And though it has no direct correlation with what we are going to do today, is to talk about tourism. But Navina is also a rape survivor, and she is a victim of domestic violence, and she has still come out of that. And viewers, why I mentioned that, it just shows us how diverse and how strong we are as a country, and how the women of our country, which we've already mentioned, in her forms of the Durga, the Lakshmi, and the Saraswati, she embodies so much in her. So today, I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm going to pass the web stage to Dr. Navina to talk to us and show us more about the beautiful land of Kutch. Welcome, Navina. Navina, can you just unmute yourself?
Yeah, so welcome to the Run of Kutch. It's a land that amazes you. But more than that, it is a land of the people that amaze you. As man has entered this world already and raised the curtain, I will begin with a very well-known saying are you all able to hear me?
Yes, Navina, you're loud and clear.
So, dingi dara, dingi dhol, dingi boli, dingi pole. This earth is firm, these animals are tough. This speech has strength, and this language is strong of Kutch. So with that, I open the whole idea of Kutch. Break a vase, says a poet, and the love that reassembles the fragments is stronger than the love which you took its symmetry for granted when it was whole. Kutch is often referred to as the largest studio in the world. And as ma'am said, I mean, on my left is this very fascinating satellite picture of Kutch. And I've compared it, like she said, with the kachua or the tortoise. And this becomes, in some way, today, as we travel in Kutch, what I'm going to build is the idea. Today we are all living in lockdown and we are all in COVID, but Kutch becomes an inspirational story. And as our Honorable Prime Minister Modi said, Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. So the idea of self-reliance, this not only becomes a chapter of traveling, but it becomes an inspiration that adds to your life. So I will begin with this idea of Kutch as a shape of tortoise. Tortoise, a turtle, which is called the old man. And so Kutch is an old piece of land. You have a fossil park. You also have the earliest civilization, remnants of that, which is called Dholavira. And with this, we understand that how the people and how the land lends itself to the idea of the tortoise. The tortoise is also known for its wisdom. It has no predators, and it is therefore a symbol of peace. Kutch has been the gateway to India. It has perpetual images, mirages to shallow, wet marshes, pink marshes, and flamingos. The art of telling a compelling story is a communication process. And Kutch's creation myth and the metaphor of both the generation and the regeneration, in fact, is what I will drive you through. So we have a large frame, which is Kutch, the tenacity of survival, and then we have various other aspects that will unfold the story of Kutch: resilience, rebirth, rejuvenation. Before 1947, Kutch was the gateway to Sindh. and in the west, and towards the east, we entered Gujarat. Kutch harbors a gateway to the mysterious Indus Valley civilization, as you can see. And Kutch is a gateway to the oceans and the world beyond maritime, past and present. Now, I would like to also mention that the sea and the salt becomes the nurturing root in some ways of understanding the idea of Kutch. So whether we see the salt in the run of Kutch, or whether we go to the ocean or the grassland or the mangroves, it is the dominance of the ocean ecology. Resilience. Now, as we are facing the COVID, the idea of self-reliance, self-belief, and self-dignity, Kutchis are unstoppable, not because they do not have failures or doubt, but they just continue to walk.
It is a context.
I would like to make you understand that this is one way of understanding the political understanding of Kutch. There was a natural corridor of people walking and coming into Kutch from Sindh before 1947. And one of the ways to look at this collective memory which they live on, their collective memory, not only with Africa, not only with other parts of maritime history, but in land itself, the collective memory and its link with Sindh. So just have a look that one of the ways which we are going to say is looking at a pilgrimage route. So they would enter this place which is in the salt desert, because there are 4 kinds of physical geography: the salt desert, the grasslands, and the mangroves, which flows into the ocean. So the people, the pilgrims, would enter this very interesting place called Kala Dungar. It's a hill which would have an eternal flame. And just like a lighthouse, people would just travel, seeing this in the desert, and come here, and there's a temple here, and they would reside here, they would stop over, and they would continue their journey in the middle to the grassland, where you have a very esoteric yogi mystics, and they are called Nath Panthis, the Gorak Nath Panthis, or the ear-torn Kanpata monks. And they have, in the middle, you see this hill, which I will tell you about it later, that they would stop here in the grassland and then proceed to Koteshwar on the ocean to complete their pilgrimage. By and large, a lot of creeks, a lot of oceans with which they would have a dialogue.
It is a these are the 3 major geographic.
So I just want to tell you that here we have the run of Kutch, which is actually the salt desert. Then you have the grassland. Then you have the mangroves, and very few people really know that these are unique land groves which are inside the land, and we'll talk more about it. And then the Arabian Sea. Now, this is also very important.
From this conceptual design, we enter the next.
It is very important to understand that the thematic design of this presentation keeps going back and forth to the tortoise, the patience, the acceptance, and the submission to the energies of the cosmic order of nature, which is the key power. They recycle. Now, this is a little restaurant in the run in a particular village which has the Harijan community. And the UNDP has set up this very beautiful restaurant where the local people serve you the Kutchi food, which we'll talk about, and they have recycled it with such beauty of mud and the tapestry on top. I come to the idea of salt. You cannot, as I said, let go of the ocean. The salt is very important. And that is what brings in the idea of Kuchiyat, the idea of the intrinsic nature of the Kutchis. You have the salt farmers, as you can see, but you also have in the mangroves particular kind of camels, kharai camels, who drink the salt water and they survive on the salt water. And 3/4 of the salt in India comes from the salt pans of the run of Kutch. Now, we also have the idea of the boatmen who belong to a specific community called Kharwa, which means Khara Pani, the salted waters. These people bathe not in the sweet water, but they bathe in salted water. And so what have you? You have this strength. They say that we have strength. All a Kutchi needs is that saltwater bath and the food which is basic maize, rotla, bread, onion, green chilies. And so they survive. They survive the ocean, they survive the desert, they survive the breaking of their annual life, and they build it again. When you come to the idea of Kutch, it is very important that whatever we are talking about resilience, this is counter with the idea of rupture. If there is no rupture, there's no resilience. So what is very important to understand are the various stories that populate the cultural geography, the mental geography of the Kutchis. We have two creation myths. Kutch's capital is called Bhuj, and it is named after the city deity, a serpent called Bhujandev. There's a very interesting story, and I'd like to share it with you. So once upon a time, there was a king, and he wanted to build a citadel. And so the astrologers came on the stage and told the king, well, there is the hill, and there is an eternal serpent who is sleeping there. So when you build your fort, it should be on the hood of the serpent. So lo and behold, they built the fort. However, there was a doubting Thomas. There was an astrologer who quite not was believing that this particular fort was actually built on the hood of the snake. So what really happened was that they demolished the fort. And as soon as they demolished the fort, they found a very big pool of blood. What did that imply? They had made a mistake. So they said, oh, we made a mistake, let's rebuild it. Unfortunately, it did not get built on the hood of the snake, but it got built on the tail of the snake. So it is believed that every time the tail moves, there's an earthquake. We've been experiencing actually quite a few tremors in Delhi. So maybe we are also situated on the tail of a snake rather than the hood. So this is the creation myth. And so the snake also becomes a symbol of recreation because it sheds its skin and it sheds and it's very focused, it slithers, and it is like the tortoise connected to the earth. And that is what these Kutchis are about. They are connected to the earth. We come to the next particular, creation myth, which is about the esoteric monks that I have been telling you about, which is that these year-torn, you can see the year-torn monks. It is very interesting that in the 12th century, this monastery gets built. And the creation myth is also very fascinating. So you had the Dhoromat, the ascetic who was actually meditating, trying to find truth about his life. He meditated turning upside down. Such was the energy of his meditation that when it was about to end, he said, he told his disciples, I have so much of heat in my body that the moment I open my eyes and whatever I look at, it will dry up and it will get burnt. So they turned his body to the north and he faced the ocean, and the ocean died. And lo and behold, there came the run of Kutch, the salt desert. In some ways, what is very interesting that this particular monastery serves to all people who pass and come here, travelers, pilgrims, or whatever, the pastoral communities. They offer them food, langar, community kitchen. So this is a tradition. In some ways, I've been visiting Kutch now for 20 years, and I somehow feel it's a kind of a repentance. So just as you have in the Sufi shrine of Ajmer, you have these big, big pots for community food. So you have two pots here as well, that they serve community food. In drought, in famine, in whichever earthquake, they always serve the food. This is now taken over by the government of India, by the government of Gujarat, and has been administered here.
Apart from the physical,
how can we not talk? How can we not talk about the ocean? We have both the Hindus and the Muslims. Now, this is another very important part of Kutch. I found a lot of Kutchis, they would have a mosque, they would have a Hindu temple, and they would always say that whenever we are in face of natural disaster, we have to rely on our neighbor, whoever it may be, and that is our surviving kit. So they live very peacefully together like the turtle. And I'm going to share with you some information regarding some of these amazing knowledge resource people. So I spoke to, preparing for this webinar, I went back, on the phone, of course, to the two people from the boatman community in the Run of Kutch on the ocean. One was Haji Umair Jatt, and the other was Shiva Karwa. And so what I'm going to tell you these two stories of how they perceive the ocean. Umair Jatt, a Sufi, he said, I said, how do you look at all this disturbance, tufan, storm? He said, tufan? Tufan is the dance of the ocean. You strive. So what is interesting is that these people, they live around the spring festival of India called Holi, and they, for 1.5 months, they travel. Their traditional route is either West Asia or to the east coast of Africa, especially Zanzibar. As part of their oral education, they are taught there are 10 types of storms. And the chart on the right-hand side actually gives you the 10 kind of storms, which is now, on boards, on boats, etc. And each of the storm, they are taught how to deal with the storms. But more than that, Haji Umair Jatt told me, so, madam, we have a little Sufi saint. He's called Savla Fakir. Savla Fakir's dargah or monastery is near the Kori Creek, which I'll take you to. And it is believed that the Fakir was born in a human family, and after he was 10 or 12, he went back to the ocean to live with the fishes. There were many ships who were facing a lot of difficulties, and every time a ship faced difficulties, Savla Fakir would come and rescue the ship and the boatman. So in the tradition, when they are about to sail off, they worship Sabla for Fakir, they ask for his protection, they sing the song. But what is also beautifully recited by Umair Jat, Duri, Duri, he says in a Sufi ballad of the love story of he Ranja. And so he ran to the shores of the ocean, only to see that her lover Ranja, never forget, it's metaphysical. So we as the temporal soul and there on above the creator. And so he ran to the shore only to see that her lover has sailed off. She twisted her arms and she plucked the flowers, and her eyes fell on a patch of grass. She sat down and made a little raft of the grass and sailed on the ocean to meet her lover. And that is the spirit, to meet your lover. You churn in the ocean, you understand yourself. Now I come to the Hindu boatman. So this is a little island off the coast of Zanzibar, 20 miles into the ocean. And there are two Hindu ocean goddesses. One is called Asapur Mata, the other is called the Sarkota Mata. And the Hindu boatmen, the castes, they go when they are ready to sail off or when they complete their boat, and I will be speaking about the boat making craft, which is fascinating in Mandvi. You actually, it's like, you know, you open the door and it's almost like you've entered the biblical world of Noah's Ark. But the Hindu communities, it's very interesting. They go to the Asapur Mata and then they go to the Sarkota. But when they are about to sail off, the women come, they sing specific songs and they offer a coconut, a nariyal. And so the boatmen take the nariyal, one with them, and they also take a model of
This is Shiv.
Shiv. So you can see Shivji Bhai Karwa, a 90-year-old boatman who sailed all around the world, is carrying a model of this absolutely amazing boat. And so on reaching this, there is an island where there is a Sarkota temple near Zanzibar. They go into the temple and they offer the coconut and a model of the ship and bring us protected. So now I come to the idea of boat building. So traditionally they would use Burma teak, they would go to the market, they would use, and the most common wood which is used is sal. I asked the boatmen, how do you choose the wood? And would you believe what they say? We talk to them because they have to choose the spine of the boat. And so they said, we talk to them. And when the wood talks back to me, that is when I start building the boat by choosing that particular wood. It's so beautiful. It's such a lovely way that we recover ourselves, we rejuvenate as we travel through Kutch. We come to the next. This is Savla.
Just as the Hindu
Dargah, beautifully done in near Kori Creek, which I will be coming as we go along. Now we have come
in this idea of
the other craft. How can you not talk of Kutch and you not talk about textiles? Whether it's embroidery, block printing, tie and dye. It's the domain of one, dominantly when the men come, the embroidery is done by women, but the printing, the tie and dye, and the Rogan art, as it's called, is done by the men of a particular community called the Khatris. On your right-hand side is this old man and his son. The old man is an amazing mastermind and master craftsman called Ismail Khatri. By the way, You know, when you go into their home, they take you for a tour. They're very systematic. And they take you for a tour to the laboratory. And what is this laboratory about? It is about their colors, making their organic colors. Well, in 2001 earthquake, they were in a particular village that there was a river where they would dye the cloth. Unfortunately, that river dried up. And then with the help of a lot of people, including a person like Jaya Jaitley and many, many others, they got together and they now have a little village adjoining the Bhuj city, which is called Ajrakpur. So the block printing they do is called Ajrak, and Ajrak, Azrak, which means indigo blue. So on the left-hand side, you see the young man preparing the indigo, Sufyan. And by the way, Mr. Ismail Khatri has so much of knowledge that he has been given an honorary degree in chemistry, mind you, chemistry, from the University of Manchester. And Sufyan, though they live in the village, think local, they're self-reliant, he actually participates in all kinds of fashion shows, including the Lakme fashion show. Now, when I went back to them, asking them about the theme of resilience, you know what he said? We are inspired by the spider. Why? Because every year our homes are broken down like the spider's home, and it rebuilds its home again. So they have incorporated, in fact, the spider into their art form. These are, they have two kinds of sections of crafts. They make these absolutely stunning wooden blocks. This is the spider's design, and that is the textile of Ajrak. Now, there's another part to it. There was a time when people would not be seen without not wearing ajrak. The men would not feel that they were complete unless they had a turban made of the ajrak block prints, or a lungi, or any other stole, or whatever. So ajrak there was a local demand and there was a local supply. In fact, in the COVID, many of them are talking about rejuvenating local demand, because most of them were making goods for the export or the urban market, but they've gone back and looking so practically and systematically. Now, when I talk about the Kutchis, the very important part of reinventing is their systematic way of working. They are great mathematicians. When you're looking at the spacing in this textile, you can see the play of mathematics, how they do it, the idea of measuring distance, etc., or how they carve the wooden blocks. Now, one other factor which remains a thread is the mysticism of Sufism, which is compassion, love, and living together in peace. And so a very eminent textile historian, the late Lotika Varadarajan, he would say that when you're looking at a wooden block and then you're looking at the design in Ajrak, there is both the centripetal, that is the forces of the design moving from a center. So there is a center, and like the spider's web, and the forces moving out to energize the person who wraps the cloth. And there's centrifugal, where there's a culmination of the energy into the back of the center. So this movement, just imagine wearing a textile like that. You're fully energized. No wonder the Kutchis felt incomplete without not wearing ajrak. I would like to again bring in a very important aspect of inherited systematizing and improvisation, continuation, and adaptation, which goes into the theme of understanding Kutch. So while you're traveling in Kutch, just don't go to do your bucket list of tick marking. Okay, I've been to the Goshen, I've been to the Salt Desert. There is so much of learning and the idea of leisure with work. So when you go to Dholavira, the Indus Valley civilization, It's very interesting that there is a system of the roads, the way it's as ancient as that. So the idea of systems actually go into the genetics of the Kutchis. On the right is a very interesting community. They are called the Mutwas, and they are the ones who stay closest to the salt desert. Ghulam Beg, who was the head, who sits right in the center in this picture, who's standing actually, they all migrated from Sindh, so they still have their connectivity of collective memory with Sindh. In fact, many of them sing Bule Shah's songs. Look at the way this man looked at development, and it's a very fascinating case study. There was a factory which came up. He told the young men, you can go to the factory, but don't forget, when you come back, you must go to graze your cattle. The women do fantastic embroidery. So there was the synergy of imbibing the tradition with the contemporary. A second feature, they are all crazy over cricket. That's what I understood, like most Indians are. The argumentative Indian, you can always catch them on politics and cricket. So these people are very hooked onto cricket. Of course, a lot has changed in this community ever since the government of India launched the Run of Kutch festival. This village has been incorporated in the cultural geography of that festival. However, what Ghulam Beg did was wonderful. They had one particular home. Not everybody was allowed to keep a television. Only this was like a community center. So when you would finish your work, you would go into this particular hut to have community time. And there would be chatter, there would be songs, the children would be running around. He said if there was a television in every bunga, look at these homes where they're standing, it's called the bunga. And in fact, the cement, when the earthquake came, many people believed that the traditional architecture was so much more practical because the bunga just goes down, and the person doesn't die. And the cement, of course, causes a lot of fatalities. So one bunga was designated as a community center, and nobody else was allowed to keep their televisions in their huts. The other way of looking at the idea of adaptation and continuation, not only in the memory of systems and calculations and business, because Kutchis are hardcore businessmen, especially the women, in fact. They've always been self-empowered with embroidery. So not only do the embroidery get passed on as dowry stitches from one daughter to the other, but the women trade in embroidery and they are savvy. I met this one woman who was whose husband and they were mud artists, putting mud glassware into the mud. And she knew how to do courier, she knew how to get the license, she knew export license, etc. And she was illiterate. She was signing with her thumb, but she knew it all. So that's the spirit with which they work with. The other idea of adaptation and continuation you see is in this beautiful pottery, and many, many, many designs of the Kutch pottery actually remind you of the Harappa Indus Valley civilization, and you see the continuity of the spirit and the adaptation. The next art is very interesting. Waste to wealth has become a motto for our world today, but the Kutchis have been doing it now. I'll give you two examples of the crafts of how they do it. This is Hussein with his grandchild, and he's a copper bell maker. And you get this craft actually also in Turkey and Syria. So some way this connectivity has remained through the craft. And within minutes, he makes copper bells and they innovate. In fact, Salim, his son, told me recently, I said, so what are you doing in COVID? Oh, madam, we already have a range of things which we have, which we are new kind of products, which we are going to launch after COVID is over. So the Kutchi, the industrialists, the industrial way they work. Now, what is fascinating, both Hussein and Salim told me that, oh, we know how to create waste into wealth. And so they take scrap metal, thrown metal, waste metal, and they make these beautiful sounds of nature. The large bells are used as neck bells for the cattle when they return home. Just imagine the sunset over the salt desert and the dry grassland with these bells tinkling in their ears. And they have made an instrument with all the 7 notes, and of course wind chimes and many, many more things, including angels for Christmas tree. So this is how savvy they are. We come to an amazing tribe, and here I bring in a glimpse of one of the textile tribes, and this is the Rabaris. The Rabaris were, until the 70s, they were itinerant, they were moving around Kutch, and they became settled communities. And there's a very beautiful story of an American lady called Judy Frater, who started an NGO called Kalaraksha. And this is Lacho Ben, the one in front is Lacho Ben. And they are so good at creating these stories and adapting to the modern needs. And I would like to really bring to you the story of the textile in a way that how Lacho Ben's daughter, she wanted to sort of break so that is the beautiful embroidery which you have on top, which is traditional. And in a modern way, suddenly she wanted to bring in a halogram and put in a lot of colors. And the moment she finished, everyone, all these women around said, wow, that is great. So these people, they just live, and they're fascinatingly innovative and adapting to the needs of the modern market. When I am repeating this particular this idea of making use of waste to wealth, just now there is Kalaraksha, and the women are in the lockdown with very few raw materials. So what have they done? And they told me the story. So, madam, we have encouraged all the women to use every bit of their cloth and do this applique work. We'll make wall paintings, we'll make carpets, we'll make bed sheets. And so how they've used this time to rejuvenate themselves rather than cribbing about themselves. The other aspect, which is a very important motive in talking about the impermanence and therefore the submission to the idea of time, that we as humans cannot live in arrogance that nature will provide with us. We have to sync ourselves with nature. That's what you learn in Kutch. So they have this pulwadi, the motif of the flower. It's fragrant, and for the time present, how glorified it is in its colors and its perfume. And then it melts away, because that's what cycle of life is. And so again and again, the reverence, the idea of rebooting, the idea of realization, and embroidery is meditation as well. I would like to play for you. I would like to play for you the dances. I would like to play for you a video of the Thali dance, which is a ceremonial dance which is performed by many, many communities. They balance the plate. Thali means the plate. And it is about balancing your life. When a child is born, it is performed when a human being enters one phase of life into another. So a marriage, a childbirth, and so on and so forth. And they don't have any lyrics. It's done on drum beats just to be in tune with the rhythm of the earth. So I come now and take you down towards the ocean. So we've crossed the grassland, we've come to the ocean. This is a taluka or a province of Lakhpat, a very, very old port, and a fort stands here. And many, many people, if you remember how I began, the pilgrimage that ends at Narayan Sarovar, you have many temples here. And the Narayan Sarovar temple, as you can see, is a very old temple, as much as you can see the Lakhpat fort. And the archaeological history here, the mythological history, the history of the rituals, the history of the ocean, it's, oh God, it's just full, a basket full of living another fantastic theater of life. We will talk about trajectories and travel in Kutch, but one of the things which is very important is the idea of the mysterious Fakiri Jat and the Rabadis who lived near the mangroves, and this is in the taluka or the province of Abasa. And here you have not only in this Mohadi village, and you see these women. There's a very beautiful film which is called Hidden Hedon, which is made on these Fakiri jats. And now, of course, there's a conflict because the camels and the industrialization, and they have a practical solution. They said, if we have a dialogue, we can balance both. And I think that can happen in any discourse of development. So it's not opposing development, but marrying the tradition. And that is what Kutchis are about. And I would like to show you a very unique instrument called surando, which is, there are very few people left. There are very few of these instruments left. It's got 5 strings. It's shaped as a peacock. And I would like to make you hear the sound of the waves and the desert. And from there we come. When you have so many ruptures, when you come to Kutch, it is very, very important to understand that these people who live with so much of hardship, they must be having a lot of, and these areas have been cut off, really cut off from humanities, and there's very little hospitals and infrastructural facilities traditionally. So how do people survive? And they must be having, you must be wondering, but they do have a plethora of traditional medicines. And one of the ocean communities who migrated into Kutch are the Yaksh or the Jaks. So when you are coming from Lakhpat, you enter the mangroves and you come to Jakao. The Jaks or the Yaksh are believed to have come from Persia, carrying with them manuals of traditional medicine and a load of knowledge on astrology. Even today, the Jaks are called by the local people for curing themselves and also astrological calculation. So the story goes. Now let me tell you the story. So one particular Maharaja, he was childless, and his queen quietly smuggled in a yaksh or a jak. And the king discovered, and he was tortured. And then to rescue him came 72 people rescuing him with fair, high cheekbones, riding horses. That's why you see the horses. And with them was one woman who held the group together. So every time you go to a Jak's temple, a Yaksha's temple, you will see that there are horses which are votive offering after a wish is fulfilled, especially for having a child. And the yaksh are supposed to be the guardian, both of the physical and the mental and the worldly problems that we have. So this is yet another lesser told secret of Kutch. I would like, before I sign off, I can't but tell you about the Sufi mystics from Sindh, the Wai. We have now only 3 left because there were 4. Just last month, one of them died of throat cancer. And there are these apprentices. There is the Kalavarso Trust who gave me this beautiful documentation, and they are looking for ways to bring this back into the forefront of conserving this intangible heritage. Again, they sing the ballad of Heer Ranjha, and this Heer is now telling the doctor, how can you don't know what I'm suffering, I'm separated from my lover. So this is what I'm making you hear for a short while is just the entry of the performance.
Dr. Tapa, can I interrupt and ask you to share very quickly also the, yes, there you are. I was hoping you will share the itineraries. Great.
I will. So then, as we know that the name India comes from the word Sindhu, or the river Indus. And the Shah Latif is one of the greatest Sufi poets of Kutch and Sindh. And he writes, true, the river has gone dry and worthless plants have begun to flourish on the brink. The elite merchants are on the decline and tax collectors have disappeared. The river is littered with mud and the bank grows only straws. The river has lost its old strength. You big fish, you do not return. When the water had its flow, now it's too late. You will soon be caught, for fishermen have blocked up all the ways. The white flake on the water, its days are on the way. And before we end, I would like to give you a suggested, of course you can do it in 4 nights, 5 days. The itinerary for 4 nights, it's very well connected now. There was a time, believe me, it was very difficult to reach Bhuj, but now it's very well connected both by trains and flights. And you do get a range of hotels, but I would still ask you to just go because you should be really spending time understanding Kutch, and most of your days will be outside. In the 5-day itinerary, you land in Kutch, in Bhuj. You go in the evening to the local market and to the and you go to Ajrakpur to see the textile. The second day, you go to Bani or the salt to the salt desert, and then you absolutely go on the 3rd day to the ocean, Mandvi, and then you come back on the 4th day to Bhuj. You look at the Parag Mahal, the Aina Mahal, and many, many other things, including Gujan Dev's temple, and of course shopping and eating near the bus stand, the Bhuj food. And it's always a delight to go inside the Bhuj city because you discover so many people in the market, in the old market, with all kinds of dresses. And it's really wonderful. You're transported into another time. The ideal way to look at Bhuj is 8 days and 7 nights. Your first day in Bhuj, as I told you, the second day, you cover the Bani. Do select only a few villages. I would look at, and you need a local pass out there where there's a place where your local guide, Bindyari, where a local pass is made. And then you go to, after doing bunny, have food, book ahead of time at this wonderful UNDP restaurant, which I told you about. And then you go post lunch to Than, which is the monastery of the year-torn monks, and then you end the day in the craft village called Nirona, where you have Rogan painting, you have the lacquer workers, you have the copper bell workers, and so you enjoy a day of crafts and people's culture. The third day, you go to the ocean, and it is when the tide comes in that the water rises. In Mandvi, you see the pink flamingos. The Ranavati river is there. You go to the palace, the Vijay Vilas Palace. You can book on the beach. You come to the Mandvi beach, and then you can, if your guide is good, he will tell you how to have a tour of these wonderful Noah Ark-like ships. The fourth day, you go to Lakhpat, and you actually spend a night there because it's a lot to see. The Narayan, I have not deliberately, because there was so much to talk. There's a separate talk which needs to be done on the wildlife in Kutch, which has to be separately accounted for, because today my aim was to give you the intrinsic idea of Kutch. A Narayan Sarovar sanctuary is there. There are the temples. Then you go to the Jhakao. You come to the village Taluka, up the Abdasa, and that's where you look at the mangroves and the Fakhiri Jat. And the fifth day, you return to Bhuj. You relax and you have a good time there. Dholavira, you go on the sixth day. You spend the night in Dholavira, getting connected with the idea of old ancient India, how well planned, how mathematical, how organized, including flush toilets were available in Dholavira. You return the seventh day, you do your shopping, you do your eating, and the next day back home. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll be very happy to take, but with a little bit pinch of salt. Bye-bye. Hope to see you again.
That was an amazing walk through Kutch, wasn't it, viewers? Now, just a couple of things. In fact, so many questions, but I am going to share with the viewers. Dr. Jaffa mentioned about Dholavira. Incidentally, Dholavira, viewers, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is located at the Khadir Island in this part of the world, the western part of the Gujarat state in the Kutch district. It's also the second largest Harappan site that we have in India. And it reveals the evidence of a remarkably planned city. And it goes back to 5,000 years. And archaeologists have suggested that it seems that it was a lovely garden city and also a city of lakes. So there's so much to learn from our own heritage and culture. And we hope that when you go to Kutch, you shall definitely go to Dholavira. And incidentally, it is also important to share with all of you that Bhuj, when it went through the earthquake in 2001, and how a challenge and how a disaster can be turned into an opportunity. I think that's one reason why one should go to Bhuj, because our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, who was at that point of time the Chief Minister of the state, took up the project and took up the challenge to not only revive Bhuj and to revive the house building through so much planning that went there, but also to energize the local economy. And it's not just that now the discussion is on the Atmanirbharta and the go vocal for local, but I think Bhuj encompasses all those things that are now needed by all of us in building up the narrative for India, because you cannot go to Bhuj and not go to Dhordo, which is about 80 kilometers from the Bhuj airport. You can drive from Ahmedabad. It's about 6.5-ish hours of drive from Ahmedabad. There's a tent city in Gujarat, in Bhuj at that point. It has about 400 tents, which the Gujarat tourism runs as a Kutch Ran Utsav. It starts somewhere in December and goes on till February, and the place simply transforms. And what is amazing is that it's the locals. the Bhuj people, the Kutchi people from that region who run this entire tent city. And not only can you stay in the tent city, but there is so much that happens over there. There's camel cart excursion. There is a BSF camel show at 5 p.m. There is the hot air ballooning. There are smaller events to see around. And of course, you cannot miss the salt marsh on a full moon. It is so, so very romantic. We were there in February, viewers, and the sights and the arrangements are just unparalleled. So there's, as Dr. Jaffa said, there's so much to talk around in that region that I think simply on Kutch region, perhaps we can do 2 or 3 more webinars, but that's very, very tough.
I would
but
like
we should keep driving. Yeah, please, Jaffa.
I would like to end with just one thing which I wrote on Kutch. Everything in the universe talks. The voiceless grains of salt, the barren hills, dry grasslands, and endless oceans. And let them ask who you are. Where are you going? Listen to them. The nature will whisper back to show you the path. Your feet will begin to walk and your mind will begin to think.
Thank you so much for that amazing, amazing walk through Kutch. Viewers, when I walk through the different regions of our country, it is so tempting, so humbling also. And today I think we've witnessed another very resilient and strong and gritty and enterprising people. So I want to also learn the languages of my country as we go along. Therefore, I try and attempt every time to say something to everybody in the local language. And so I would now like to say, Aap sau prati abhar vyakt karu chu for joining us today. I want to thank all of you for encouraging us and staying with us. On Tuesday, the 2nd of June, from Kutch, we move a little upward. We will remain a little on the west of the country and we take you to Haryana, the state of Haryana that is famous for lassi, the dhabas, and the spirit of the jats there, and so much else that happens in Haryana. And of course, the humor of Haryana that people are known for. So thank you, Dr. Jaffa. Thank you, NEGD, once again for an amazing presentation and keeping it all together. Viewers, do not log off because we have another 1-minute video to share with all of you. But do travel to Bhuj either through the airport. There is the Rudramata airport at Bhuj, or you could go to Ahmedabad and you can drive from Ahmedabad. It's about 5.5, 6 hours, as I said, to Bhuj. And do not forget to visit the amazing tent city, Dhodo, Mandvi, Dholavira. There's just so much. So once again, thank you so much for joining us and encouraging us. Stay to watch the video and sign off and see us again on 2nd of June in Haryana. Thank you.
Shukriya. Shukriya. Thank you.
कच्छ का ये रण हिंदुस्तान का तोरण है। चांदनी रात की ये सफेद धरती यूं लगता है जैसे चांद जमीन पर उतर आया है। प्रकृति की कठिनाइयों को दिल पे नहीं लेते कच्छ के लोग, जीवन को सजाते हैं रंगों से, कला से, संगीत के सुरों से। मांडवी का नीला समंदर भी यही है पास में। यहां खुशबू है उत्साह की, उत्सव की, रंगों की, कलाकारी की। खुशबू है गुजरात की। आपने कच्छ नहीं देखा तो कुछ नहीं देखा। कुछ दिन तो गुजारो गुजरात में। जय काका।